All right, this next stop is at a mine pit on the north side of Three Peaks. You can see that it is actively being used as a shooting range, as quarries and mine pits tend to be anywhere in the United States and probably most places in the world. I don't know. That hill up there is some mine tailings, so that's the leftover waste that they didn't want to use when they were digging out this pit. So the question at this stop, which I will give you some GPS coordinates for, I believe in the comments or underneath the video. The point of the stop is to see what they were digging after down in there at this site, and it has something to do with the rocks from the first stop. Okay, so I've descended into the mining pit. You can see that there's some dark layers cutting across the regular rock, and in here I wanted to point out that you've got these dark layers here, and then internally the host rock has been brecciated. It's been broken up into little pieces, and it's probably because there's been some movement here. If we look on up here, these have been sort of smoothed, so I suspect there was some physical adjustment of these rock layers as this dark material was being emplaced. If we slide down to here, I believe right there, you can see that there's a vein, and you can tell that this vein grew in a crack because of the way the mineral crystals are oriented. Those white crystals are apatite crystals, if I remember correctly, which is kind of interesting. Hydroxyapatite is what makes up our bones, but it also shows up in igneous rocks. So there's another clue for you there. And most of you from Cedar City know what these dark and oxidizing minerals are. You can see where they're fresher, they're a little more sparkly, and if you look at them under a hand lens, they're approaching euhedral in some points, at some places. And that means the crystal had some space to grow and it took its relatively perfect form. Smaller bits of it up there, and so that's just one spot. We'll check out a few more in this pit. So I'm not going to walk over there because it's actually quite a physical walk through all that rubble from the mine. But if you look over there, there's a dark body that cuts through the surrounding rock, and that's what they were chasing as they were digging out this pit. That's why the pit's so elongate. They were chasing dikes that intruded into the igneous rock that we're talking about. So again, I haven't given all those clues away about the igneous nature of this rock, but hopefully you'd figured it out already. And if you're from Cedar, hopefully you already knew, because you've taken a few geology classes already. So a large dike that they were chasing through the igneous rock. What might that be? And so be thinking about that. Let's talk dark rocks. So these are some samples from that dike. They are dense. This is much heavier a rock than this nearly equivalently sized one. This one is lighter, though it's larger than this one. So the grams per centimeter squared on this one are pretty high, and that's a clue as to what is in these rocks here, right? It might turn out, I'm gonna smack it with a hammer, see if we can even, no, okay. I thought maybe it would spark. That might work with quartz on it. Again, pointing out that there is a white mineral here that's probably apatite, growing amidst this much denser black rock. And then if I pull those out of the picture, and I put this one in, you can see that the same type of minerals were growing on cracks in the rock. And this rock even shows some smooth surfaces, which are probably slicken lines. So as the rock was deforming, it was grinding past another rock, and that smoothed it out and slickened it out. And in one of the cracks adjacent to that, you've got all these black minerals. I'm going to zoom in so you can get a good look at them. There's a reason this county is called Iron County, and it has to do with these deposits. Now, they're not as abundant here as they are elsewhere in the county, but they were of value, and they have been actively mined up until this day. As a geology major or as a geologist, one of the common questions you get in Iron County is you'll get samples like this brought in, and they'll be like, hey, is this a meteor? And though it is very, very dense and likely magnetic, there are a bunch of signs that it's not a meteor. For one, it's found at an active mine, so it's coming out of the rock. Right? It's not a meteor that's found on the surface. It's very angular, of course, right? And as meteors fall from the sky, they're going to burn up on the edges and be fairly smooth. And so, in general, it's not likely. But just a reminder at how dense and black these rocks are. And again, this is why there's a mine here. And this is heavy. This is probably 10 pounds, at least. So that's it for this stop, and I'm going to move on to another one. Okay, so I wanted to make a brief statement about safety on geology field trips. So in a mine or a quarry pit like this, especially one with all this anthropogenic garbage, you want to be careful. You want to be very careful of approaching the walls of the quarries or of the mine, because they might not be stable, especially in the springtime, as there's been a lot of freeze and thaw. Could be knocking large chunks loose. So if you all were on this trip with me, I would have said something about that. Stay away from the walls. You also want to be really careful about wearing the appropriate footwear, because there is broken glass everywhere. There's busted up casings from bullets, shotgun shells, smashed up stuff, sharp metal. I'm resting the iPad right now on a shot up refrigerator, which is a major cut hazard. So you got to be really mindful about where you're putting your hands and your feet, and making sure that you're not doing anything where you're likely to fall down, because you could get hurt pretty bad. And we're pretty close to town, but that's still not something you or I would want to deal with. So stay away from unstable cliffs or walls. Mind the human danger around here, and that'll help keep you safe. I also would recommend, if you pick anything up in this quarry, that you wash your hands before you eat or drink anything, because it's probably covered in a fair amount of lead dust from all of the shooting. So that's something to keep in mind about some safety. All right, that's it.